Hi everybody, meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on this Tuesday, February 27th, 2018. It's coming up on 6 o'clock Eastern Time here in the, excuse me, in the Eastern U.S. And it's 11 o'clock London time, and we're looking to the side here, that way, this way. There we go. I got to remember it's backwards. But this is a infrared satellite loop of what is going on across the North Sea and into England and Ireland, where we've been seeing waves of streamers of snow coming in from off the North Sea and into the eastern shores of England. Actually, from some of the radar images that I looked at earlier, which I'm still trying to find one that I could use here to show you without getting into any sort of trouble, there was quite a bit of activity in terms of heavier snow showers scattered up and down England from south to north, and even over Ireland with the rain offshore. And this is going to continue they're going to get more snow on and off over the next couple of days. This is all going to eventually culminate in low pressure that is coming up from off the coast off of the coast of Portugal and Spain, and eventually making its way northward. So I want to just take care of that for our friends overseas who are already up kind of late, and we'll give you this part of it first before we go to our own issues. And we've got issues here with respect to our forecasts. I saw from the comments already, you guys are already on top of this. So you're looking at the NAM and the new GFS and everything else. I have some thoughts, and by the way, that screenshot that I had up before the video started, that was the European. But you can see the snow that's being indicated by the GFS over the North Sea and over Scotland and parts of England tonight. And there's some more as we go through the day on Wednesday. In fact, a good chunk of the island is covered, both islands covered with snow. Now, watch that low. This is what's coming up for Thursday. This low pressure center that's off the coast of France and moves northwestward. Now, their models have been trying to show a band of snow coming up from the south. They backed off a little bit on this, but one of the interesting things I find is that the low is not lifting up completely to the northwest. It kind of stalls out there off the coast of France, and that might prolong some of the snow and cold air into the weekend before it finally starts to warm up a little bit going into next week. But the overall driver of this, by the way, has been that blocking pattern. We'll just show you the upper air real fast. And I'll just bring it back to a couple of days ago. There's the beginnings of your big blocking high. And remember, it's clockwise around highs and counterclockwise around lows. You've got the upper air here, so your upper air winds coming across Siberia into Western Europe, and gradually as that upper high started to shift a little bit, so did the cold air, and that big upper low that you see that forms over northern Italy, responsible for the snow that they had in Rome. And here comes another one that's kind of pivoting around with the snows that you're seeing coming out from the North Sea. And then that upper low swings a trough up and around. You see it there. And that's what we're going to have to deal with for the end of the week and into the weekend. And in terms of snowfall, we'll see what the model's doing for additional snows here for the next 5 days. I think that'll be fair. But the bulk of this is probably front-end loaded. So there looks like there will be some more snows to deal with here across England and Ireland, in some pockets getting up to 12 to 20 centimeters, which I guess we could take that down to about 4 to 8 inches would be a pretty good range in some areas, especially as you go up toward the north. But even in some southern areas, picking up some substantial snows here, at least substantial for England and Ireland anyway. And the Canadian model, just real quick in comparison, because that has been more aggressive, and it remains still very aggressive here right through Sunday across all of England, with some 20 and 30 inch centimeter amounts. So that's a collective total of a foot plus. And you can also see some scattered snows, some scattered heavy snows in northern Spain, parts of southeastern France, and in through the interior of northern Italy. So very busy weather pattern indeed. Let us now jump over to what everyone is talking about with respect to the NAM model. And before you get too excited with the snow map, let me bring up the surface map, because I think that's probably the more important thing we should be looking at this point. And that's the end result. Now, here's the thing. We've got a low that's coming out of the southern plains. You can see it here. Kind of takes a little time. This is later Wednesday when that low starts to really push out in the moisture. The primary on the NAM goes up into northern Ohio by Thursday afternoon, but the isobars are already stretching out over the Delmarva Peninsula, and a new low is going to form off the Delaware coast, and that is going to become the main player. Now, that low is only going to be able to would like to go on its merry way to the east, but it's only going to be able to get so far because of the block. And you can see by Friday morning, the NAM is actually rather cold here, showing snow in a lot of areas inland. I don't know where I am with this yet. I'm still kind of trying to grasp it all, and the European was especially aggressive with this too, with regards to the cold air collapsing. And the reason why it's doing that is if we go to the upper air, the NAM is bringing a really vigorous closed upper low right over southern New England, down to New Jersey, into northern Delaware. So the dynamics here are very, very strong and very powerful. And the thing is, this is a situation where you could potentially see the bottom of the atmosphere get cooled basically from the top down. It's not the easiest process. You got to have a lot of things in your favor, but when you've got a strong upper air low like this, this is where it could happen. Now, here's the outcome by Friday morning. We're looking at 5,000 feet. The areas all in the light blue or darker, that's all temperatures below freezing at 5,000 feet. That would be supportive of snow if the precipitation falls heavy enough, and that's going to be key. Are we going to have heavy enough precip in order to cool that bottom part of the atmosphere? The low sits here southeast of Nantucket and actually starts to move east, it just rotates around. Now, you'll notice, by the way, the cold air has an uneven distribution. There's a pocket here that the NAM shows above freezing just inland of the coast. And the thing is, intensity is going to be the driver. You don't have real Arctic air here. This is what I often refer to as do-it-yourself cold air. It's the cyclone itself is creating cold air, and there's a relative unevenness about it. So not a surprise. And by the way, eventually what happens is, too, you've got this system that's out in the ocean that's spinning around with a huge circulation. So if you put the, I'll put the isobars back on, you know, this huge circulation. Eventually warm air comes sweeping in from the ocean and gets rotated around. So with the absence of any kind of Arctic air to the north and west, you're going to have to do this with whatever you got. Now, this is through 1 a.m. Saturday morning. I think the best reflection of what could fall is probably going to be the positive snow growth map, because this will at least take into account melting and a few other things. And you notice that even though it does have this sort of really large area of snow, the NAM is not really going too crazy when you use the positive snow growth map. And I think a lot of what you see here in terms of the numbers, because it is you're seeing prints of a foot plus in that greenish area, the green areas in the Catskills and also in through interior New England. This is definitely a situation where elevation is going to drive all this. So I would say that, you know, if you're going to see any of these higher amounts, if they happen, then you are likely to see them in more as you go up, and less so in, say, the valley areas. And of course, even on the coast, the NAM wants to show a coating to a couple of inches. I suppose it's not impossible. It doesn't stand alone, by the way. There are some other models, including the European and the SREF, which would argue that this is a possibility. Let me just go to the European model, which we only have in 24-hour increments. But again, here's the European's upper. This is the temperature at 850 millibars, 5,000 feet. So, you know, just about everybody is below freezing Saturday morning. And even on Friday morning, you can see where the zero line is. The lighter green is above freezing. The blue is all below freezing. So you do have this cyclonic cold air that's being created that the models are showing is going to be created in the atmosphere. Here's the upper air on the European. And it basically has the same idea, although maybe a little less developed in strength than the NAM has. But it does have this low, this cutoff low, as we like to call them, sitting right over New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, down into Maryland and northern Delaware. The GFS, late this afternoon, also has this wrapped up cutoff. But the GFS is handling the cold air a bit differently. It doesn't quite collapse it in the same way. Here's the GFS's surface. Now, one of the things the model did do this afternoon, which I was interested in, is, you know, the earlier run tried to take this primary low up into western New York and wound up with a secondary near Boston before it dropped southward. This is a little different. It's further south. The low is basically, you know, out in the ocean. The other big difference is, by the way, if you look at how the GFS has the low oriented, and then we're going to look at the European. I know I'm throwing a lot at you here. The European has the low much further south and has much more of an east-west look to it. Okay. What it says basically, and you can see how large a circulation this system is, by the way, impacting the weather, impacting all the way down off the Florida coast and all the way up into eastern Canada. So this is a very large storm in terms of the geography that the circulation covers. But it's all about the block to the north. It's all about how these systems are going to react to the block and which model has the better idea in the block's impact with regards to the surface storm and the redevelopment. See, the European takes a low into the Ohio Valley, gets it into southwestern Pennsylvania. I don't have the in-between to show you. You're just going to have to trust me. So it has a low, the primary low dying in southwestern Pennsylvania, and then the secondary low that develops here, it kind of rotates up and around and then eventually drops southward and then southeastward, so that by Saturday morning you can see how far out it is and also how intense it is as well. A 952, I think that's a 5, a 952 low sitting way out in the Atlantic at about 36 and 63. It's north of Bermuda, which Bermuda is, trying to get the coordinates to Bermuda here for you. So roughly it's like 32 and 64-ish. So, you know, this thing is way, way out. There's going to be some impact here for the coastal waters with this storm. Coastal flooding, I think, remains flooding front and center. The orientation of the surface low is going to determine when the coastal flooding is going to have its greatest impact. The European would suggest that the Friday morning high tide will be difficult. And then, of course, with this big storm out in the Atlantic, I think the Saturday morning high tides are going to be problematic as well. Although the Friday tides will probably, I think, will be higher with all of this. And that plus the fact that you've got this storm really moving in a weird direction, because it's getting up toward Cape Cod or just south of Cape Cod and then starts dropping straight southward. We don't see storms do that here very often. And again, all of this responding to this block, this really incredible blocking high right over Greenland here. The upper feature can't lift up, so it goes east and south. You can see it here on the big jump it makes from off the Jersey, near the Jersey coast on Friday morning to out near 60. It goes underneath it as the block is building southwestward. And over time, by the way, while the upper high disappears, we do continue to see higher than normal heights and pressures across eastern and northeastern Canada. So there is the negative NAO is going to continue to play through all of next week. So, and there are going to be several weather systems moving along. But, you know, I think the first one, in my view, is the one that's really front and center at the moment. And I don't want to spend too much time going forward. There might be some other chances down the road. But, again, front and center at this time. I want to just keep my focus on the storm along the East Coast. Meanwhile, look out, they've got this trough in the west that just won't go away. I mean, it's just ridiculous how that is. I'm just going to back the GFS up and just show you, the GFS has probably had the model that seems to be having the biggest issue with handling this block and what this system in the east wants to do. Today, the late afternoon run seems to be coming into line with the others. So they're all pretty close. The Canadian model, by the way, I should bring that up because the Canadian model, and so here's the Canadian model here. It's got this big upper air storm. You can see it swinging out. There's your trough, but it kind of does everything a bit further to the east so that the system is initially a little flatter at first, but it does wind up into a big storm once it gets out into the coastal waters. And here we go, I'll give you this view. So you can see it here, 970 low. Because the upper air feature on the Canadian is not as defined and well developed as the other models, it keeps most of the coastal, it has a more intense storm and a more intense looking nor'easter over time as it moves out over the waters, but it doesn't have that wrapped up upper air low that develops on the Canadian, develops a bit further to the east, so you don't have the cold air collapsing in the same way that the European and the NAM model show, although they do eventually wind up with the low in about the same place. So all very, very interesting and fascinating how this is all playing out. I want to go to the rainfall map, because rain is going to be a problem in some places. So let's see what the NAM does. And you can see it goes pretty crazy across much of New England, southern and central New England, with some 2 to 4 inch rain amounts. And generally, everybody seems to get at least an inch or two out of this, 2 to 3 inch rain amounts in the Hudson Valley. One of the keys here, too, with respect to this whole event is, how much precip does fall when we have the cold air around. And that is an important question. Unfortunately, I can't break the NAM down like I can the GFS to 24 hours. But the GFS, there's the GFS's profile of the rain. It's not that different from the NAM, except maybe the southern flank is a little less developed. But I'm putting up the 24-hour precip amounts. Now remember, the GFS has a bit further north solution here. I'm trying to just see, this is 18Z Sunday, so let me go back. Alright, so here we go. So I want to see if I can at least take out the rain. So this is from Friday morning to Saturday morning, okay? And if you allow for the cold air to collapse, if these amounts are generated, you certainly would see the higher snow amounts where you have that ½ inch to an inch plus of liquid showing up through interior upstate New York. The amounts lessen down the coast, so it basically, the GFS only gives about a quarter to a ½ an inch of liquid during the day, Friday into Friday night. The NAM would probably give more than that because of how it has the upper air, the upper low structured. So, look, here's how I'm boiling this down. I think, the change, the idea that we're going to see a change over to wet snow is something I have to consider. I'm still not there, as this would normally be a time where I would start at least putting out a preliminary snow map. I'm not going to do that yet. I think there's just too much variability in the models at this point. Still, I think the models have the right idea with what's happening. The question is, which models got the better handle on the upper air dynamics? And I don't know that we're going to have, as a forecaster, I don't know if we're going to have a handle on that until at the very earliest later tomorrow, and maybe not until Thursday. So Reaver, I am going to avoid a first call map at this point. I don't have enough here to do something with any kind of confidence. Mimi, you would disagree with my model hugging. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying. This is not very. That's not very scientific. What is that? Oh, okay. Are you talking? I'm not sure. Are you talking with me, or are you talking with? Oh, I guess you're referring to the fact because Daniela wants to go with the NAM. Well, you know what? The NAM. Oh, you're saying I would disagree with the model hugging. Yeah, I mean, look, I can't grab. The NAM has done very well this winter, and the European has not. And the thing is, but then again, this might be the opportunity that the European has to outperform the other models. In the past, in a situation like this where blocking was involved, the European has tended to do better. No model is perfect. So, I kind of see how it gets there, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet if that's the direction that the models are going to eventually lock into. So I think it's just probably wise to wait on this and see what happens over the next 24 to 36 hours, and see if models do come together. I'd like to see the GFS come in a little colder. And try it did a bit on this afternoon's run to try to match up a bit better with the European and the NAMS solution. That'll give me a little bit more confidence. And then I think the Canadian, its idea of developing the upper dynamics when it's already east offshore, that is how that model sees it. I think that on that case, it might wind up not being correct. I mean, it looks to me like the dynamics, the situation would favor that upper low to close off further to the west. But you know what? Stranger things have happened as well. So I can't rule anything out at this point. So we're going to keep a very broad perspective here for a while longer. If the storm drops south of Cape Cod, Robert Hurley asks, being it's further east of Long Island, can it bring in colder air for snow? Well, yes, I would just say that I would rather see it not get close to Cape Cod. I don't want to, if you want snow, I don't think you want what the day run did with the GFS where it had the low north of Boston. That seemed to me to be very unrealistic, given that the block is as strong as it is, that you would take a primary low that would hold on to some identity even into western New York, almost to Lake Ontario, before the secondary takes over near Boston, and then to see it from there dropping straight south and south of Long Island, that's pretty weird. I don't know if that's the case. Eric P., on the question about the wind, well, let's say that a lot is going to depend on how the surface low develops and where it is, because the Europeans' wind field would be gales and storm force wind gusts from Long Island and New Jersey, starting later Thursday night and through the day Friday into early and even into Saturday. But the GFS, on the other hand, with how it handles the low on the earlier run, taking a low up to Boston, and the winds, if that were the case, there wouldn't be much coastal flooding here on Friday other than what the moon the moon's influence with the full moon. But you'd have northwest winds here, albeit probably gales, but you'd still have northwest winds. So it's going to depend on the redevelopment and where the actual surface low happens. So I think if you want to see that something more favorable in terms of snow, Robert Hurley, you're going to want that surface low to basically come out off the Delaware coast or southern New Jersey, and just kind of stretch out east-northeast from there before it starts its track southward. Or if it comes out off the Delaware coast, it could make an initial run to the northeast before it comes to a grinding halt and the block begins to suppress it south. I think the block is going to be the ultimate driver of where this goes. 34 knots or higher, Reaver. That's gales, okay, and certainly the potential for wind gusts on Long Island. I would say right along the immediate coast. Right along the immediate coast, there'll probably be gusts. I wouldn't be shocked to see gusts of 50. I don't know if you're going to see gusts of 50 inland, but on the immediate coast you will. Southside boxing. Oh, bang on for you, Southeast London. I'm in Southeast London. Very little snow, a bit colder. Other places got it much worse than us. So thanks for that, mate. Well done. Hey, I'm glad. I'm happy the forecast worked out. This was a new thing for me. Shelly Man Studios, I imagine, one of the things I don't like doing when I do my TV stuff is get into, the three alternatives. I mean, look, there's always three alternatives. There could be 6 alternatives or a dozen alternatives. I don't, if it goes here, we get this. If it goes offshore, we get less. You go on forever about that, and I don't know that it does a good service to folks when you give them the scenarios. I think everybody up in this area pretty much knows what the scenarios always are. It stays to the south, it goes to the north, and all the rest of it. Ryan Ford, could the block be so strong that it forces a storm from the Atlantic Ocean into a lander? In other words, are you asking if it would force the storm to initially offshore, that the block drives it southwestward before it moves eastward? I'm thinking probably not. There's enough movement at the bottom of the atmosphere in the jet to get an easterly component in this. The block would have to really be crazy strong. It's probably not far enough south to get this thing to sort of drive itself back westward. But could it do a loop of some kind? Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if the surface low, or it looks like it does some kind of loop on some of the model runs that we looked at today, so I wouldn't be shocked at all. Excuse me. Very good, Timothy Veltman. Well put. There should be 2 scenarios. You get what you want, or you get what you don't want. I think that's perfectly put. Thank you for that. Barbara Ryan, as far as the Mid-Atlantic is concerned, you're going to need to get some Arctic cold air of some kind relative to the time of year. You're going to have to at least get colder air than what we've been experiencing back into the Northeast and down into the Mid-Atlantic states. I mean, we are going to see some chillier air, but it's not going to be Arctic air because we don't have, in spite of the fact that we have all this blocking, we don't have a teleconnection that of some kind. The Pacific is a mess. With that deep trough in the west, we don't have some kind of jet that's at least feeding down some cold air from the north. So it's going to be a tough sell for you the further south you go. You would have to do it basically on air that's just cold enough, and dynamics like what we're going to see up in areas to your north. Let's see. I don't know, Jason, if spring is going to be colder than normal. The blocking pattern in the negative NAO might make for a cool start to the spring. And Southside Boxing, by the way, keep me posted, please, over the next couple of days with more snow in the forecast. I'll be curious to see. Let's see. Yeah, it's all East Coast today, and it's all Europe. It's funny. People, one of the things that I don't do is I just don't get too worked up. I've went through too many winters over the years where, when I was younger, where you didn't have much to talk about. Try 4 horrible winters in a row. I happen to think that the last 3 winters were not for at least for me, and I know everybody's got to look at their own area because all areas are different. I've had the last 3 winters for me have been all above average in terms of snowfall. We've had a nice peppering of snow events and still seeing some big snow events. Then we had the cold in the first half. Look, I noticed this from some people, and not so much here, but in other places when on my Facebook and some of my posts. Some people think we live, I can't even say that we live at the North Pole because they're experiencing temperatures 50 degrees above normal. But some people think we live in Siberia, okay? That we are that winter is supposed to start on November 1st and last through April 30th, and that it's supposed to snow every single day and never get above freezing, except and also let's add that from the actual winter season from December 20th to March 20th, or whatever the days are, that temperatures aren't even allowed to go above 0. Okay, that's not what weather in the winters in the Northeast are like. They are much more volatile, and obviously it's not like I just described. But some people seem to think that this is how it used to be, and it just never has been that way, and hopefully never will be. You missed the first part of the show, Southside Boxing. How's the rest of the week for you guys? Yeah, I did all the Europe stuff at the beginning, but I will tell, just to review, you are going to continue to be cold through the end of the week and into the start of the weekend. I think you're going to see some more snows on Wednesday and Thursday, and then for the winds coming over the North Sea. Then later Thursday night and going into Friday and Saturday, you're going to watch a storm coming up from off the coast of Portugal and Spain, and then be off the coast of France and go west of Ireland, or maybe stall out just south of Ireland. That has the potential to bring up a swath of snow from south to north. So I'll be interested to see if that works out. And don't apologize. You are always welcome here on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate you letting me know what's happening on your side of the world. And you know what? One of these days, I am going to come and pay a visit, because England and both England, Ireland, and Scotland are all on my list of places to go in the long term. Okay, so we're gonna call an end to all this. Stephen Franco, you just jumped on. I'm just wrapping up, so I'll post this over on Facebook, and you can always rewatch it here because the live streams stay up and are up here and go into the video library, so you can watch this again from the beginning. So sorry, but I'll be a Facebook Live tonight with Joe Rayo at the usual time, 9:15 Eastern Time. So you can join me. That's on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Cioffi. And of course, I've got a number of website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And Reaver, you want me to bring Joe Rayo on tomorrow? Okay, that I think we might be able to do, depending on the timing. May have to push the live stream back to 7 o'clock. For us to both do it together. So we will. I will make an attempt to bring him on. Okay. So Joe and Joe show, Tom Adams tonight, 9:15 on Facebook, and with a little luck, maybe I'll have Joe on tomorrow night. If I do, then the live stream will be at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and not 6 o'clock. But I'll post it up on the full screen on the channel page in terms of the time for tomorrow. Okay, folks, have a great evening, and we will see you either later on Facebook or tomorrow.